Welcome back to I Am Medical. Do you have congestive heart failure or know anybody in your family who've just been diagnosed with congestive heart failure? These are my top 10 tips for patients with congestive heart failure. So let's begin. Step number one, understand what the problem is. The problem that you have right now is that your heart as a pump is not pumping efficiently, meaning the heart is not pumping all the blood out of your heart. That does not mean that your heart is not pumping any blood out of your system at all. It does mean that you are pumping, but just that it is not as efficient as it used to be. The primary problem is not that the heart is not able to pump out blood so efficiently that you're going to have end organ damage, meaning you're going to end up with renal failure or feel like the rest of the organs in your body is not getting blood. The primary problem that actually happens is the opposite. Because you're not pumping blood forward, everything backs up. So when it backs up into your lungs, what's going to happen is the blood pressure within the vessels in your lungs are going to be so high that you're going to push fluid out of those vessels into your lungs and into your interstitium. And what this is going to do is make your lungs really wet. And when it becomes really wet, it cannot efficiently do gas exchange. And when that happens, you're going to start feeling short of breath. And also remember, when you're sitting up like this, most of the fluid tends to sit at the lower part of your lungs, and therefore you can breathe better. But when you go lie down, what would happen is now your lungs are mostly covered with fluid because you're putting your lungs downwards and there's more room for the fluid to actually affect your lungs. And oftentimes what you would notice is that you feel more short of breath when you're lying down. And if you start seeing that and you start realizing that, wait a second, why am I using so many pillows to go to sleep? That means that you are having more buildup of fluid in your lungs. So the fact that you're using 1, 2, 3 pillows, progressively increasing the amount of pillows that you're using, means that you're collecting a lot more fluid in your lungs, which is not good. And this is what doctors call as orthopnea. As the pressure backs up even more, it's going to back up into your legs. And a very early sign that most of you are going to notice is that you start noticing that your legs are starting to swell. And if you take your finger and poke it to the bone, what you would notice is it's going to form a dimple. This is what we call as a pitting edema. And most of the time you start forming this fluid at the ankles and it slowly works its way up. Why? Because of gravity. Gravity is going to make the fluid accumulation at the lowermost part initially and slowly work its way up. And pedal edema is the second important thing that you should always keep an eye for. Number 3, do you feel like your belly is getting distended and do you feel like your waist size has increased? And if that is the case, what's probably happening is you're accumulating fluid in your belly. Now remember, your belly has organs in it, but there's a lot of free space in there also. So when you have a lot of free space, fluid tends to accumulate in this region. And this is what we call as ascites. So these are the 3 most important signs that you want to keep an eye for when you have congestive heart failure. That is orthopnea, using many pillows to go to sleep, pitting edema, meaning your legs are swelling up with fluid, and number 3 is ascites, fluid buildup in your belly. So now that you've understood what are the 3 most important things you're going to keep a watchful eye for, and remember, we know the 3 things that are bad, so you don't want this to happen. Meaning if it's happening and it's getting worse, you need to go see your doctor right away. Because the worse it gets is going to force you to go to the ER sooner than later. So that is my tip number 1, understanding your condition. Tip number 2 is salt restriction. Everybody gives advice to patients saying, hey, you have to restrict your salt intake. The number that you need to know here is 2 to 3 grams. 2 to 3 grams is not a lot of salt. 2 to 3 grams is 3/4 of a teaspoon. 1 teaspoon has just 4.2 grams. So imagine you take 1 teaspoon, it's 4.2 grams. You can't even have all of that. You can only have 2 to 3 grams of salt, not per meal, but for the entire 24-hour period. That includes your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, your snacks, everything. But that is what you have to do. When you have a condition such as congestive heart failure, you don't want to take in salt. Well, why, doc? Why do you not have to take in too much salt? Well, remember, when you take in salt, salt is going to enter the kidney, and in the kidney, your kidney is going to reabsorb that salt back into your blood. And when salt is reabsorbed, salt always reabsorbs water with it, and that is the problem. It's not essentially the reabsorption of the salt itself, but salt reabsorption always brings in water, and you don't want a lot of free water in your body because remember, you are accumulating fluid all over your body. So one of your main goals is you don't want to accumulate fluid in your body, and salt indirectly is going to cause a lot of water reabsorption along with salt reabsorption in your kidneys, and therefore is bad. So salt restriction to less than 2 to 3 grams per day absolutely needs to be followed. Tip number 3 is fluid restriction. Fluid restriction is so crucial. Remember, when you have congestive heart failure, your heart cannot pump all this fluid out of your heart efficiently. So more fluid you take in is going to make the heart work harder, and it can't. It cannot work harder. As a result, you will only back it up, and you will only accumulate these fluids in your lungs, your belly, and your legs. So too much fluid is your problem. So what you need to do is don't take in so much fluid. So how much is not so much fluid? How much are you allowed for the day? Well, sad to say, it is only 1.5 to 2 liters for the day. And a lot of people have misconceptions saying, hey, that's just water. No, it's not. It's all fluid, all fluid. Now that includes your tea, your coffee, your soups, your sodas, everything. All of that included, every little drop of fluid that goes into your body must account for it, and therefore total fluid intake for the day should not exceed 1.5 to 2 liters. Tip number 4, daily weights. You want to weigh yourself every day, not just on Fridays because you feel like you don't want to see if you're gaining weight. No, keep a strict track on your condition. Weigh yourself every single day to see if you're gaining weight. If you're gaining weight, that means you need to change something, because when you're gaining weight, that means you're putting on a lot of fluid weight, which is not good for you. As a congestive heart failure patient, you do not want to gain that weight. So daily monitoring of your weight every single day is absolutely essential. And apart from that, look at your body and see, press on your legs to see if you have edema. Press on your legs to see if it dimples. If it doesn't, you're doing good. If you started seeing dimple, it is not good. You might need to do something about it. Decrease the amount of fluid you take, decrease the salt you take, and you'll see that those changes alone could make a difference and make it go away. So look at your legs, feel your belly, see if your belly is getting distended. And number 3, a very simple method for you to identify if you truly have fluid in your body is to lie down flat and see if you're smothering. If you're lying flat and you feel absolutely comfortable and you're not smothering and you don't feel short of breath, means you do not have fluid in your lungs. So using multiple pillows is bad. Lying flat is good. Tip number 5, stop smoking. Smoking is bad for everything. So there's absolutely no benefit that comes from smoking. So absolutely you need to stop smoking. Now smoking does not have a direct impact on congestive heart failure, but smoking plays an overall risk in everything. It causes all sorts of problems, including coronary artery disease. And coronary artery disease contributes to more than 50% of heart failure. And therefore, if you do smoke, you will worsen your coronary arteries, and that could lead to congestive heart failure indirectly. So remember, stop smoking immediately, because smoking does not lead to anything good. It's hard, and I understand, but you got to start trying today. My tip number 6 is stop drinking alcohol. Now, the normal recommendation for pretty much every single person out there is not to stop drinking alcohol completely, but to limit alcohol intake. For males, it's less than 2 drinks per day, and for females, it's less than 1 drink per day. Now, what is the reason for recommending that you can drink some alcohol? It's because some studies have shown that alcohol actually has an antioxidant effect, and therefore is protective for coronary artery disease. But this is all in moderation, and therefore drinking alcohol excessively obviously leads to liver cirrhosis and a whole load of problems. So alcohol is bad. For a patient with congestive heart failure, my recommendation would be to completely stop alcohol. And the reason I say this is you are already on a fluid restriction. And if you're already on a fluid restriction, you trying to take in 2 drinks or 1 drink is just adding so much to the fluid. And a lot of people have a hard time stopping drinking anyways. So once you start, you might end up having more drinks. So it just puts you into that vicious path and often tends to push you down the wrong path you don't want to go through. And therefore, stop drinking alcohol would be my best advice if you do have congestive heart failure. And remember, alcohol by itself can cause thiamine deficiency, which would lead to a condition called wet beriberi, which is congestive heart failure by itself. So alcohol is not the best thing for somebody with congestive heart failure. So best advice is stop drinking completely. Tip number 7 is lose weight. If you are overweight, that poses a bunch of problems to you straight off the bat. You probably have insulin intolerance and probably have type 2 diabetes mellitus. You also probably have a lot of dyslipidemias going on, all of which overall is going to cause coronary artery disease. Dyslipidemia is the primary reason why you develop atherosclerosis and block off those coronary arteries. And coronary artery disease is one of the main risk factors to cause heart failure with reduced ejection fraction or congestive heart failure. So you do not want dyslipidemias in your body. And lose weight and get your body back into shape. And losing weight by itself can decrease hypertension. So if you had concurrent hypertension, losing weight alone could decrease hypertension and decrease the amount of blood pressure medicines that you will be taking for your condition. My tip number 8. Now this is very important. You need to make sure that you are on the right medicines for congestive heart failure. And we call call this as guideline directed medical therapy. Now, what is the guideline directed medical therapy? What it means is there are medicines when somebody's got congestive heart failure and your heart function is really low that we can start you on, and with time your heart function actually improves. I've seen people's heart function go from 15% all the way back up to 50%. There has been such good improvement just being on these medicines. So what are the medicines that you need to know that you should probably be on if you have heart failure with the EF less than 50%? Well, first drug group is going to be the RAS inhibitor. That is going to be a drug known as sacubitril/valsartan. The next drug in this group is going to be ACE inhibitors, which is going to be drugs such as enalapril and lisinopril. So anything that ends with the pril is the drug you kind of want to be on. Number 3 is going to be another group known as angiotensin receptor blockers. You have losartan, tamisartan. You're looking for a drug name that ends with an artan. So when you compare these 3 drug groups, which is the best drug to be on is sacubitril/valsartan. So you want to make sure you're on a RAS blocker. Number 2, you want to be on a beta blocker. It is only one of these 3 beta blockers that have mortality benefit in this arena. And what are they? They are metoprolol succinate, bisoprolol and carvedilol. So make sure you're going to be on a beta blocker. And remember, being on multiple drug regimens is actually better than being on any single individual drug. And if you're on a beta blocker, what we are trying to target is get your heart rate down to what? To 55 to 60. So don't be alarmed when you see, hey, my heart rate's running in the 50s. Is this a problem? No, it is intentional. It is intended for us to bring your heart rate down. So we want your heart rate to be between 55 to 60. The next drug group you need to be on is something known as a mineralocorticoid receptor antagonist. And this is a drug which we call as spironolactone and eplerenone. Both drugs are going to work on your kidneys and prevent you from reabsorbing a lot of sodium and water in your kidneys and prevent that fluid overload that's happening. So important thing to remember when somebody is on spironolactone, it also has anti-androgenic effects. It can block off your androgen, which is your male sex hormones, and as a result cause gynecomastia, breast pain. In females, it can cause menstrual irregularities, and libido can be decreased in both males and females. So when you don't want such side effects, your better choice in this drug group is going to be eplerenone. The next drug group, if you are an African American, what you need to be on is a hydralazine plus isosorbide dinitrate combination. This drug actually does have mortality benefit just in an African American population. So these are your 4 main drug groups that you absolutely need to be on if your heart function is low, because it gives your heart the best chance to prevent further remodeling and improve your function, and with time your heart function is going to improve. Isn't that great? So all you need to know is your RAS inhibitors, your beta blockers, your MRAs, and your hydralazine and isosorbide dinitrate. That's great to improve your heart function, but there is another drug group that you need to be on the daily to prevent you from accumulating fluid, because remember, fluid accumulation seems like the acute problem, right? So what you need to be on something we call as a diuretic. Now a diuretic is a medicine that's going to make you pee. It's going to make you pee and get all this fluid out of your body. So what are the drugs that we typically use is something known as furosemide, torsemide or bumetanide. What they make you do is make you pee and get rid of all the fluid from your body. So you want to make sure that you are on this diuretic every single day on most of the patients. Now remember, don't feel like, oh, I'm taking a diuretic and therefore I'm peeing so much that I'm getting so dehydrated. I want to drink a lot of fluid to keep up with it. No, that's the wrong idea. Our goal is to get you dehydrated. We want to get this fluid out of your body so we can keep you dry. So your fluid restriction is 1.5 to 2 liters. Even if you're peeing a lot and getting all this fluid out, all you're supposed to do is still stick to your 1.5 to 2 liters. You want to keep your body as dry as possible. You do not want any fluid accumulation in your body. So understanding what drugs for you to be on is my tip number 8. Tip number 9. This is so important. Always make sure you keep up with your doctor's appointments. Make sure you keep up with your appointment. Doctors don't make appointments for patients just so we can see you all the time, just because you're such a nice person. Maybe you are a fun person to hang out with, but that is not the reason we're calling you. We're calling you because we want to make sure that we are on the right path, and we want to make sure that you are getting the best health benefit that you can possibly get. So when your doctor makes you an appointment, please keep to the appointment. Make sure you're not missing out on this appointment, because when you're on so many medicines, when you come in for those appointments, there are a lot of things that we do. We do a physical exam and assess to see if you got fluid in your lungs. Is your belly becoming bigger? Is your leg having swelling in it? And if you're not doing so good, what we would do is we would change your medicines and increase the dosage to see what we could do to get you to that state we want you to be in. And apart from that, we would also run labs, because most of the medicines you're on can cause a lot of electrolyte imbalances, and and therefore you want to keep an eye on your kidney function. You want to check your potassium, you want to check your calcium, you want to check your magnesium. There's a lot of tests that we would run to see and make sure that these drugs are not causing any problems for you. My last tip for you is, if you were diagnosed with congestive heart failure based on an echocardiogram today, question is, when should you repeat that echocardiogram? Well, there's two ways to look at it. Number one, if you had a myocardial infarction, meaning you had a heart attack right now, and the heart attack was the reason that caused you to have congestive heart failure, the doctor would start you on the medicines today, but you need to repeat that echocardiogram in 40 days. In 40 days, you would repeat the echocardiogram to see if your heart function has improved or not. Because if it is not improved, we need to do something about it. If it is improved, great, we're headed in the right path. Whereas if you did not have a myocardial infarction, but you had fluid overload and you were just diagnosed with congestive heart failure, what we would do is we would repeat the echocardiogram in 3 months. That is 90 days. In 90 days, you want to repeat the echocardiogram to see what your heart function is. Has it improved or has it still remained low? If it has remained low after 40 days or after 90 days, and if your number is less than 35%, at this point, you need to ask your doctor, what does that mean, doc? What your doctor would tell you is that, hey, since your heart function is so low, you are now at risk for having arrhythmias, and these arrhythmias are bad because it can actually kill you. Now, arrhythmias, what we say is specifically VTach and ventricular fibrillation. It's ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation. It means your heart just goes erratic and runs at super high rates, 180, 190, very fast rates, and this can actually lose your pulse. Now, ventricular fibrillation normally never has a pulse. Your heart would actually stop and you can actually have sudden cardiac death. So arrhythmias can happen more frequently when your heart function is lower than 35%. All right, that is scary enough, doc. So what are you going to do about it? Well, the doc's going to say, well, what we could do is we can implant a defibrillator in your heart. And what this defibrillator is going to do is it's going to shock you out of that rhythm when it does happen. Oh, that sounds so good. Let me get one of the defibrillators because you want it, right? You don't want sudden cardiac death. So if your EF is less than 35%, your primary care doctor would give you a referral to the cardiologist or the electrophysiologist, and eventually what you would need is to get a defibrillator implanted in your heart to shock you out of this rhythm when that arrhythmia happens. When your EF is less than 35%, everybody's going to get a defibrillator, that's for sure. Question is, do you also need a pacemaker along with it? Well, the cardiologist would take a look at the EKG at that point and see if you have certain abnormal rhythms. For physicians, what we're looking for is a left bundle branch block and your QRS complex. If you do have a left bundle branch block and your QRS duration is greater than 150 milliseconds, then this patient will also require a biventricular pacemaker along with the defibrillator. So that's my most important tip when it comes to tip number 10. Get a repeat echo. See if you need a device implanted in your heart to prevent sudden cardiac death. So these are my top 10 tips for patients with congestive heart failure. I truly believe if every single patient did follow these 10 tips, would prevent hospital admissions and overall improve your health before you know it. Small changes like this can make a big impact in your life and your family's life. So let's make that change today. Thank you for watching. If you like our content, please like this video, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you get notified when a video is released every week. Have fun studying. We'll see you on the next one.